Story 1: The Dollhouse of Despair. The Smith family moved into their dream home in rural Pennsylvania in 2016, unaware of its dark history. The house came with an old, intricately designed dollhouse in the attic that their daughter, Lily, quickly became enamored with. She spent hours playing with it, arranging the tiny furniture and dolls. One night, as Lily was playing, she called her parents, excitedly showing them that the dollhouse furniture had moved on its own. The parents dismissed it as her imagination. But strange things began happening around the house. Doors would open and close by themselves, and faint giggles echoed through the halls at night. One evening, Mrs. Smith went to check on Lily and found her talking to someone in the attic. Lily claimed she was playing with her new friend, a little girl named Emily, who lived in the dollhouse. Concerned, Mrs. Smith did some research and discovered that a girl named Emily had died tragically in the house decades ago. Determined to rid their home of the spirit, the Smiths brought in a paranormal investigator. The investigator discovered that the dollhouse was a replica of the house and served as a conduit for Emily's spirit. After a cleansing ritual and removing the dollhouse, the disturbances stopped. The Smiths hoped Emily had finally found peace. Story 2: The Mirror of Madness. In 2018, the Johnson family purchased an antique mirror at an estate sale to decorate their new home in Savannah, Georgia. The mirror was beautiful, with an ornate frame and a glass that seemed to shimmer mysteriously. They hung it in their living room, unaware of the dark presence it brought with it. Soon after, Mrs. Johnson began seeing strange reflections in the mirror, shadowy figures that seemed to move behind her. At first, she thought it was a trick of the light, but the figures became more distinct. One evening, she saw a woman in a Victorian dress staring back at her with hollow eyes. The family started experiencing disturbing events. Objects moved on their own, cold spots appeared around the house, and they heard whispers in the night. Mr. Johnson decided to research the mirror's history and discovered it once belonged to a woman who died under mysterious circumstances. It was said her spirit was trapped within the mirror. Desperate, the Johnsons contacted a local medium who confirmed the presence of the restless spirit. The medium performed a ritual to release the spirit, and the mirror was removed from the house. The haunting ceased, but the family could never forget the terror they endured while the mirror was in their home. Story 3: The Room No One Entered. In 2019, newlyweds Mark and Anna purchased an old Victorian house in New England, excited to start their life together. The house was perfect, except for one room on the second floor that was always locked. The real estate agent said it had been sealed for years, and the previous owners never used it. Curiosity got the better of Mark, and he decided to break the lock. Inside, they found a dusty, untouched room filled with antique furniture and an overwhelming sense of dread. They left the room alone, but strange things started happening. They heard footsteps, saw shadowy figures, and felt an unwelcoming presence. One night, Anna woke up to see a figure standing at the foot of their bed. She screamed, and the figure vanished. They decided to investigate the history of the house and learned that a previous owner had locked his wife in the room for years, where she eventually died. They contacted a paranormal expert who performed a cleansing ritual and advised them to keep the room sealed. After the ritual, the disturbances lessened, but the couple still felt uneasy. They eventually moved out, unable to shake the feeling that they were never truly alone in the house. Story 4: The Crying Baby. In 2020, the Martinez family moved into a historic home in Charleston, South Carolina. They were thrilled with the house's charm and history, but their excitement soon turned to fear. Shortly after moving in, they began hearing the sound of a baby crying, usually at night. The cries seemed to come from the nursery, which was unoccupied. Mrs. Martinez, who was expecting a child, was particularly disturbed by the cries. She often felt a cold presence in the nursery and saw the crib rocking on its own. One night, she heard the crying and went to the nursery, only to see a ghostly figure of a woman standing over the crib, weeping. The family researched the house's history and discovered that a previous owner had lost her baby in the nursery. Grief-stricken, the woman had taken her own life. Believing the woman's spirit was still searching for her child, the Martinez family sought help from a local paranormal group. The investigators conducted a séance and confirmed the presence of the grieving mother. They performed a ritual to help her move on, and the crying stopped. Though relieved, the Martinez family remained haunted by the memory of the ghostly cries that once filled their home. Story 5: The Basement Prisoner. In 2021, the Andersons moved into an old farmhouse in rural Minnesota. The house was perfect for their growing family, but the basement had an unsettling feel. It was cold, dark, and damp, and no one liked going down there. One day, Mr. Anderson found an old diary hidden behind a loose brick in the basement wall. The diary belonged to a woman named Margaret, who had lived in the house a century ago. She wrote about being held captive in the basement by her husband, who was a cruel and abusive man. Margaret eventually died in the basement, and her spirit was said to haunt the house. Shortly after discovering the diary, the Andersons began experiencing paranormal activity. They heard moaning and crying from the basement, objects were thrown across the room, and the temperature would drop suddenly. One night, Mrs. Anderson saw a ghostly figure of a woman in a tattered dress standing at the top of the basement stairs. The family called a medium, who confirmed Margaret's presence and her torment. The medium performed a cleansing ritual and urged the Andersons to give Margaret a proper burial. They found her remains hidden in a wall and gave her a respectful burial. The haunting ceased, and the Andersons finally felt at peace in their home. Story 6: The Haunted Painting. In 2022, the Thompsons moved into a quaint cottage in a small town in Maine. The house came with various antique items left by the previous owner, including a large, eerie painting of a man with piercing eyes. The painting hung in the living room, and Mrs. Thompson felt unnerved by it from the start. Soon, the family noticed strange occurrences centered around the painting. They heard whispers and saw the man's eyes following them around the room. One night, Mr. Thompson heard footsteps and saw the painting's figure standing in the hallway, staring at him. Disturbed, the Thompsons researched the painting and discovered it had belonged to a wealthy man who had died mysteriously. It was said his spirit was trapped within the painting, seeking vengeance. The family contacted a paranormal expert who suggested removing the painting and conducting a ritual to release the spirit. After the ritual, the painting was taken away, and the disturbances stopped. The Thompsons were relieved but couldn't forget the haunted eyes that once watched them from the walls of their home. The painting was never seen again, but its legacy lived on as a chilling reminder of the terror they experienced.